Hey everyone, just your average fellow Star Wars fan here, and the purpose of my making this video is to touch upon a few things, to kind of get a few things off my chest, things that have been lingering in my mind for a couple of days now, ever since news broke out on Star Wars that you've all probably heard of. They're making a new movie, and hence I would like to kind of talk about it a little, just share my thoughts with you guys. Sort of like a personal reflection, more like, because I'm not really looking for any subscribers or any views or whatever. It's just something I do on YouTube. It's like a personal vlog, and it's always based on Star Wars. And I don't do this. You can check my channel out. I don't have many videos. In fact, I only have one video where I've recorded myself talking about things, and that was also Star Wars based. And well, that video had to do with my grievances with Star Wars, which started back in 2017. See, I've always been a lifelong Star Wars fan, but for me, Star Wars will forever be contained between the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy and everything in between. Beyond that is none of my concern. I have made it a point to not make it my concern beyond that ever since they released The Last Jedi. From then on, I kind of just stopped. I called it quits on Star Wars, because it wasn't Star Wars to me anymore. It was now turning into something else entirely, because you didn't have the original characters, you didn't have the original story, you didn't have the same direction, you didn't have the same storytelling techniques going that would call it Star Wars, like the way Star Wars used to be. So let's just touch upon what went wrong, or what I think went wrong with Star Wars. Well, if you look at the last decade, like really, if you look at when George Lucas signed off Star Wars to Lucasfilm, basically, to Bob Iger, is the exact point in time you can see a sudden change in the way Lucasfilm ran things from there on. Like before then, George Lucas was in control, and the ironic part is that George Lucas was, like, the reason why Star Wars was so successful was because George Lucas actually went against the Hollywood status quo, and he actually went against the studios, in the established studios in Hollywood, and did his own thing, and it ended up becoming something that, just people had never seen it before, and it was the best shit people had seen back then. I mean, literally, those special effects and everything. It was a lot of things at the same time that George Lucas did. He didn't just make a sci-fi movie back then. He did a lot of things simultaneously that were breakthroughs in its time. Stuff in technology, the way he shot it, the way he used the special effects, the sound, the editing, everything. I don't think there wasn't a single technical aspect of the movie that wasn't a marvel at the time. So moving on, fast forward to 2012, I believe, when George Lucas sold Disney, his company, and that is when shit started going downhill real fast. It's as you all know, as soon as George Lucas sold off Lucasfilm, the first thing Disney did was it completely shut down LucasArts, which was one of my all-time favorite game studios, like right up there with Looking Glass Studios and all these other studios from the time that were, pretty influential, pretty pioneering. So right after George Lucas sold it off, Disney wanted to make a movie as fast as it could and revive, jumpstart Star Wars again. And that's exactly what happened. I think they put out a trailer the same year of Star Wars: The Force Awakens, and everybody watched it, and it came out, and it was alright, because it was the beginning of something new for Star Wars fans, something they could look forward to. So, like, if I speak about myself here, I would say that it was all right for me. Force Awakens was good because I was like, finally we get Star Wars all over again. We're getting a new trilogy, and Force Awakens was really just a lot of action with very little exposition because we were like, okay, let's just get on with it. It was more like a celebration of a new start rather than a story that has you know story beats or plot elements that become very vital to the story. Um, and then all that happened, and then came out The Last Jedi. As soon as The Last Jedi came out, at first I, woke up one morning, and then all of a sudden there's people just going crazy over the internet where they're like screaming about how they completely ruined Star Wars and Princess Leia this, Princess Leia that, blah blah blah, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So I looked it up and I find out that Princess Leia now flies like Superman through space. And that was the first thing that really turned me off, and I was like, how is that even possible? I mean, you gotta understand, this is what I'm saying about storytelling, is that, there's a certain lore and rules around that lore established for a while. Not just like, it wasn't like a couple of years, it was like decades. Decades of that sphere of ideas, if you will, that decades of that world building is now of no importance anymore because you've broken so many boundaries there set by the source material. This is what they say when they mean this is what they mean when they say you got to respect the source material. You got to draw from the source material and try to use that as a guiding light to kind of continuing the saga or whatever. And the source material. And so George Lucas had this, not just George Lucas, everybody that contributed to Star Wars, to George Lucas's Star Wars, they were confined. They made it a point to be confined within the lore structure that George had created. And all of a sudden, 2017, I think it was, when The Last Jedi came out, they completely disregarded everything. And it was like a mess. It was like a mess of a movie, and nothing made sense. It just didn't have anything going on for it, man. Like, literally. Except for the special effects. It had nothing going on for it, story-wise. And, sure, it made a lot of money, but then, again, Star Wars is very unlikely to not make money. At least some amount, maybe it'll break even. But that's another thing. I mean, Disney is... I don't know what's wrong with Disney, man. Any other company in their right mind would want to, make as much profit as they can, but Disney doesn't seem to care about it. Probably because they have so much money, they're so big that it doesn't matter how much money they'll lose, as long as it breaks even, that they'll even go as far as to, just kind of bleed all that money, and so long as their agenda is being pushed forward, I guess they're fine with losing money, because in a way they're paying to push whatever ideologies they want to relay to the audience in their movies and everything. So coming back to respect for the source material, that's what it means. Even if you want to go ahead and like change a certain artist's take on his own imagination, you need to be able to connect to the source to be able to make it work. Coming back to the point, storytelling. So now that we've established that, at least for me, the Disney trilogy, and let's not even mention The Rise of Skywalker, because that was just J.J. Abrams stepping back in to kind of control the abomination that he helped create. And it just didn't work out, so he just kind of put it all together like haphazardly and called it a day. And he's like, okay, we're done with this trilogy now. Get over it. But come 2024, we find out that they're doubling down on what became a failure for them. I'm not too sure if they consider it a failure now that I think about it. For them, I don't think it's making money or anything, but they did make a lot of money. I mean, I think The Last Jedi made over $1 billion, if I'm not mistaken. So, you can't really say that the movies didn't make much money, because they clearly did. It's just that it was not liked by Star Wars fans. And what's the point of doing a franchise whose core audience is not your target audience? It doesn't make any sense if you really think about it, unless you look at it in the way that maybe a group of people were trying to hijack a certain franchise and turn it into something else entirely. And that's another point I wanted to make, is that Star Wars isn't really Star Wars anymore, man. It's just something else entirely. So 2017, The Last Jedi comes out. I called it quits, and I'm like, okay, I am through with this franchise. I'll just stick to my old Star Wars stuff and not worry about anything that Disney ever does from now on. And a bunch of my friends told me that they'd done, decent stuff here and there, but their mainline movies is what counts, man. That's what ties everything together. The mainline movies, everything from, your freaking games. You got games here, you got comic books, everything just is like tied together through the mainline movies. And if you screw those up, then there's no way this franchise is ever gonna get back up on its feet. It's still gonna just drag along the ground, and you can just keep dragging it as far as you want. No one's gonna give a crap. At least I won't. And funny thing is that this new director is, as I already mentioned, she's from Pakistan, where I'm from, and she's somewhat of a, obviously there's a Western perspective, and then there's the local perspective here, where she's I think she's done some brilliant stuff in the past, and she's very influential in that sense, and I wouldn't necessarily say it's her fault, really. It's not the director's fault at all. It's the way things have been, unfolding at Lucasfilm. It's like anywhere between the last 5 to 10 years is we've seen this change of policy or whatever it is. I don't know how to put it, but this change of attitude in the company that has led to a point where it doesn't really matter whether the director that you're hiring knows his or her stuff. What you want to do is they're not going for good stories first. They're going for the message first. But that's the ironic thing, is that if you have a good story, you already have a message in there somewhere, because the story works. If a story works, that means it's conveying an idea, a certain message in there. I mean, sure, you can have your own kind of message in there, but then you need to weave a story around it that makes it entertaining and compelling enough for the audience to accept your message that you're trying to send out there. All right. So that's all there is to it, really. I mean, storytelling is really important, and you need to know your stuff. I mean, you need to know the comic books, all the comics, and you need to know the games, I guess, and you need to know all this stuff. You gotta read on the books, you gotta read on This is Empire, probably the standard by which all other Star Wars movies are measured. And you also need to dig even further to really know what George Lucas is talking about when he draws from Dune. And even further back, he's drawing from even further back in history with stories, like classical stories, like ancient epics and stuff. And they already have their message in there. Universal messages. Like messages that click with everyone. And again, I don't care what the message is. I don't care what the ideology is. I don't care what it is you're trying to, have the audience accept with your movies. But unless there's a good story weaved around it, it's not going to work. You'd just be shoving things down the audience's throat that, they won't like. I mean, you're not kind of like force feeding them the whole thing, and no one likes to be force fed, dude. No one. So if you want to get your idea across, my advice to you, Lucasfilm, is to make a good story first. All right? Or at least have your story serve the message rather than the message serving the story, if that makes any sense. So, yeah. And that's all I wanted to say, basically. I'm just, like I said, I don't give a crap about Star Wars anymore, man. I couldn't care less who directs it, who funds it, who does what with it, where they take the story. But, because I'm not interested in that world anymore. I'm not interested in the world of these new Star Wars people, like the new generation of Star Wars, the Star Wars gang, so if you will, with Rey, Finn, Poe. I don't really care about those guys, and it's not for me. It's not for me. So, all you other Star Wars fans that are still sticking with it and still enjoy Star Wars movies, go ahead. I mean, good on you, man. But for me, it's just not for me. So, yeah, I'm so one of those old school fans that are done with it. I'm done with Star Wars. Well, I'm not really done with it. I'm still enjoying the old Star Wars stuff, but anything that Disney is putting out, I'm just done with it, because it's not. It's all leading towards that same. Let's just say. Area, or that same point, or that same idea, that same approach, where there's a total disregard for the story and the lore and what fits and what doesn't. And yeah, it's like none of it matters anymore, man. None of what happened in the last couple of decades with Star Wars, the lore, the structure of those games and everything, none of it matters. So none of the rules apply anymore, and it's just a completely different ball game now. It's something else entirely. It's not Star Wars as you knew. So it's not the Star Wars I knew. So yeah. That's all, I guess. Maybe Lucasfilm will heed my advice, but like I said, I don't think that's their objective. Their objective is to keep doing this thing that they're doing, and keep going with it, because they can afford to. They can afford to lose a lot of money and, still not be worried about such trivial matters as money, because clearly Disney is probably the biggest entertainment media company out there, I guess, and they're basically paying to get their ideas crammed into people's minds. But I, for one, don't care for Star Wars much anymore. So, yeah, if you guys like the movies, good for you. I mean, hope it all works out in the end. But I'll be honest with you, man, the whole Rey story, if they keep going with Rey as, the protagonist, they're going to have to do some serious strategic thinking to retcon whatever happened in the last three movies. Because there's a lot of shit that needs to be fixed before I can start accepting Rey as the protagonist of Star Wars, of the new Star Wars, the new Disney Star Wars. Yeah, I hope those of you, anticipating this new movie, I hope that you guys are pleasantly surprised by what the new director puts out. I mean, I'm hoping myself. I mean, I'm hoping that she does a good job about it. But like I said, if she continues the same way to disregard the source material, everything, if you disregard all of this stuff, you can't disregard all of this, man. And this is nothing. I don't have anything. I don't have much Star Wars related material in that sense. But you gotta ask the people that really know Star Wars what to do. Bring them in on the whole thing and ask them how that works. Even if it is some social message or something you want to put in there, make sure you ask the guys that know the stuff to help you do it in a compelling manner, in a way that serves the story, that enhances the story. Because in the end, all this is entertainment. And if you're not being entertained, if you're not enjoying it, then what's the point? What's the point at all? You might as well go do something else to get your message across more conveniently. Why use Star Wars as a platform for that? Probably because it's the biggest multimedia franchise out there. Maybe. Who knows? Maybe. And that would be the best vehicle to get some sort of signal out to the masses, I guess. But then again, I'm just rambling here now. Long story short, purpose of this video was to just, kind of share my thoughts on the subject and also get things off my chest, ease the burden a bit, because obviously, as a Star Wars fan that's pretty much abandoned Star Wars since Disney took over, I mean, it still hurts to see this franchise, be stabbed over and over again. Because it needs to be stabbed over and over again to forward a certain idea. I don't know, man. I'm just sleepy. It's real late. I got work in the morning. And yeah, good luck to you Star Wars fans. I hope this new movie that comes out in 2 years' time is kick-ass, but I highly doubt it because without all the source material to help you go along, what even is Star Wars if not the source material? So with that, I'm gonna say adieu, goodbye, Al Hafiz to everyone in the world, all you Star Wars fans. Take care, and just don't take it too seriously. My advice to you Star Wars fans right now would be not to take it too seriously and just chill out, ride the wave and enjoy the stuff that you enjoy. I mean, Star Wars is vast, dude. I mean, you've got so much. I mean, even if you go back to the originals, like the extended universes and stuff, there's so much good stuff in Star Wars out there that you can still get your Star Wars fix. But yeah, it does sort of disappoint to see the films not doing so well. But let's hope that changes in the near future. So that's all from me.